Welcome to Good Grief Mama. I'm Allie, wife and mom of 3, and this is a podcast for honest conversations about motherhood and marriage, homeschooling and homemaking. So if you've ever felt called to do motherhood and marriage just a little differently, or if you've ever wondered, why is no one talking about this? Then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you're here. This episode is sponsored by Restore Your Core Physical Therapy. Mamas, whether you're pregnant, postpartum, or your kids are in college, your body deserves some TLC. The doctors at Restore Your Core Physical Therapy get it. From pelvic floor therapy and birth prep to fixing that back pain that you've been putting off for way too long, they've got you covered. With locations in Carmel, West Carmel, Zionsville, and Greenwood, expert care is close by. Visit restoreyourcorept.com or call 317-597-6323. Make sure to mention the Good Grief Mama podcast to get $50 off a 90-minute evaluation or $25 off a 60-minute evaluation. You've been taking care of everyone else, and now it's your turn. All right, Good Grief Mama listeners, welcome back. So we are continuing on in the Granny Ways series. And today I actually did a lot of meal prepping with my husband. We made like 3 or 4 different kinds of vegetables, 2 different sides. We made rice and potatoes, and then we made a few different meats. So we like grilled some chicken, we grilled some burgers, and he made this like, I don't even know what it is, some kind of chicken pasta thing. And then I made dinner for the night, which was it was like supposed to be like a sweet and sour like pork with cabbage and peppers and rice, but I did it with ground chicken. Anyway, we did a lot of meal prepping for the week. So hopefully that will make our lives a lot easier. We'll be able to just like grab a meat, grab a veggie, get a side, and bam, we have dinner. And then whatever the concoction was that my husband made is the lunches. But you might be wondering, why am I talking about food? Well, part of this Granny Way series is I have felt, right, the strong pull to like slow down, to do certain things that I feel like might be considered granny ways. And a lot of that is involving food. Um, so there's just been something very satisfying lately about making things from scratch and wearing my apron while doing it, learning how to garden and like where to get our food from, and learning how to can and preserve that food that either I've grown or like I get on sale at the store. And so there's just been something very satisfying about that. And that has not always been the case for me. In fact, if you ask pretty much anybody in my family or anybody that has known me for a long time, I used to say that I was like the expert at break and bake cookies because that was the only kind of cookie that I could make. I remember my neighbors had made like this. Their mom was like a really good cook, and she would just like look in their pantry and be like, well, this is what we're having for dinner tonight. And it seemed like she just came up with it off the top of her head. I don't know if that's actually true, but it seemed like she just looked at the ingredients she had and was just like, chicken tortilla soup. It's like, what? Like, how do you look at that and just see that? And she made them like cookies one day and made them from scratch. Like, she didn't use box mixes for a lot that I saw, at least. And I just remember being so like in awe about that because it was just like, we do break and bakes or we buy the dough, you know what I mean? And like we cut it from the block of dough and make cookies. I just didn't even realize that people really did make cookies from scratch. And so that hasn't always been the case for me, where I enjoyed making things from scratch. And I was always not very successful at making food. There were many a meals in the beginning of our marriage that I was very thankful that I had a husband, Nathan, who would just eat the food that I made, even if it didn't taste good, because I'm not like that. Like if I don't like it, I won't eat it, but he would eat it. And so it was just very, very kind of him to survive the first couple years of our marriage while I was figuring out how to bake and how to cook. And now, I mean, I consider myself like an okay cook or an okay baker. And it just, yeah, making my food from scratch and like the doing food differently, like feeding our family differently, just hits different now. The first thing I feel like is like I can actually see the result of my hard work. Like you work really hard to make food and you put in time, certainly, sometimes effort to make something. And I love that it like slows you down. Now, is that always my favorite when I'm like, oh, we have to make dinner and we're running late, no, honestly, a lot of times if we're running late, that's when I'll lean on a faster food option like eating out or DoorDash or delivery or something like that. But when you do make stuff from home and from scratch, it does slow you down, but it's like I love seeing the results of it, you know? And honestly, I have become that person that like really loves to know if people liked my food. Like I will like, I'll come home and be like, okay, like 3 people told me that that was really good. And so it must have been good. So if you ever eat any of my food, make sure you compliment me if you liked it. That way I know that you liked it. And also if you didn't like it, you got to let me know or else I might make it for you again. But it has been nice in this world of fast and convenient food to do things different and to slow down when we can. And in the season that we're in, like, making sure to take the opportunities we can to slow down because it's so busy. It's also cool because I feel like there's so many skills that we've forgotten about how to make our own food, how to make our own bread, how to, it's not that difficult. I was watching this. I'm a real big reality TV show person and I don't even remember the name of the show. There was only one season but it was like Pioneer Life or something. And they took a couple of families and sent them back to quote unquote like Pioneer Life. And they had to garden and they had to make their own butter and make their own bread. And actually, all of them, they didn't make their own bread. They used the money that they earned, the hard work that they did to earn this money. They bought bread from the local store. And I was like, I could make that bread, Nathan. It's like here these people are wasting their dime because, it's like that was a lot of money. And it was like wasting that dime on a loaf of bread. It was like, but I could have made it. But also in that show, where I'm going to talk about gardening in a second, but also in that show, they had already had some things planted for them on their land that they gave them. And they had to learn to identify them and to like, take care of those plants. And one of them was potatoes. They had planted potatoes. And I was like, those are potatoes. I see them and they're like looking in their book and they're like trying to find, what is this plant? And they're like, oh, it's potatoes. I wonder how you harvest them. And I'm like, I know I grow potatoes in our yard. But it's like we've forgotten some basic skills of that revolve around our food, how to grow it, how to make it, and so it's nice to reconnect with that. And I have felt very fulfilled, very called to that lately in my granny ways to get more connected to how to make our own food and how to grow our own food and how to like preserve our own food. I also feel like very connected to my family's needs when I'm the one that can fulfill those needs. Like mom makes the best such and such. In fact, the other day, Paxton and Peyton both said that mom makes the best breakfast. But then I will say, just this weekend, we went to my parents, like we have a lake house and my parents live there. And my son on the way home was like, yeah, I want to go back to the lake because grandma makes the best breakfast. And I said, hold up, wait a minute. You told me that I made the best breakfast. And he goes, yeah, you make the second best breakfast. But it's nice reconnect with your family's needs and be the one that is fulfilling those needs for them, and teaching your kids these skills. I have loved teaching Peyton baking. My middle child, she's 3. And for whatever reason, she loves to help me in the kitchen. My older child, Paxton, he's 6. He not so much has enjoyed being in the kitchen. Every now and then he'll help out and do some things, he'll get excited about it. And then he usually loses interest pretty quick. But my daughter Peyton, she loves it. She's going to be the bread maker in our family. Like that's probably going to end up being her job in a few years is that she's going to be in charge of making the bread because she loves it and she does a pretty good job at it now. So yeah, so this call to, reconnecting and feeding our family differently, it does hit different, like I said, because you see the result, you're slowing down, you're like reconnecting to skills that you have forgotten. And just because of the ingredients. I mean, I don't know if you've read an ingredient label lately, but wow, there are so many things that they're sneaking into our foods and you don't even know it. And a lot of times, sometimes it's like greenwashed, right? It's like it looks like it's healthy and organic. And then you look at the back and you're like, well, there's seed oils in here. Or, there's all kinds of random chemicals. I don't even know what these are. Or like there's just stuff on there that I don't know what it is. Like if I needed to recreate it at home and I just looked at the ingredients on the back of the label, I would be like, what is this? Where do you buy this in the store? Like, for instance, I recently started making tortillas for us, which that's one of those things like bread that once you make it homemade, it's really hard to eat them from the store. Like tortillas, we used to get the Mission brand, I think is what it Mission. And we would always do flour tortillas. And I looked at the back of them and I'm going to read it. They had, I'm going to mispronounce all of this, but fumaric acid, distilled monoglycerides, sugar, calcium propionate, and sorbic acid. Okay, if I'm making this at home, what? Like now, those were towards the end of the ingredient list, but like there's so many ingredients that it has to be an end of a list. Where when I make them at home, it's literally olive oil, salt, flour, and water. And because I make them with sourdough discard, which is flour and water. So it's like already stuff that I have at home. I know exactly what this ingredient list is. And they're just sneaking all this crap into my food. So I have really felt the call too because I want my kids to have clean food. I don't want our food to be poisoned. The other day, actually, too, I was at the grocery store with Pax and well, with all my kids. They're with me all the time. So with all of my kids. And I was like, okay, we need to get apples. And Pax looked over at the apples. And he goes, ooh, let's get these. They look super shiny. And there was an older lady who was shopping like near us, and I started talking to Pax about it. And I said, honestly, those are not the apples that we want to get. And I could kind of see the lady from like the corner of my eye and she started nodding. And I was like, because they're super shiny because somebody has put a chemical on the outside of it to make them look super shiny and fresh. And I was like, we want to go for these organic apples. And he looked at them and they clearly are not super shiny. And I'm like, you want them to look not perfect because apples are not perfect. I was like, when we go to the apple orchard, they don't look perfect. They're misshapen. Some of them have little like, dark spots on them. They've got, they look like they need to be washed. Anyway, so we had a nice little like teaching moment in the middle of the store and I could see the older lady like nodding along with me when I was explaining it. So part of the granny ways and feeding our kids differently is simply because of the ingredients and stuff. And even if you just look at the back of any box that you buy from the store, I challenge you to do that if you don't already, because wow, it is eye opening. And you're going to be mad at me because now you're going to want to make a lot of food from home because you're going to be like, man, I don't want any of these ingredients in food that myself or my kids are eating or my husband. So what it practically looks like to me, feeding our families differently in this Granny Ways series, being pulled towards this this call to feed our families differently, is first up gardening, which I got to say, I made the joke to my husband the other day because I've seen it all over Instagram too. We're going to end up with like, you know, 15 bulbs of garlic and, a bowl full of potatoes and maybe 5 tomatoes. Like we're not going to be able to survive the winter like, with our garden. Our garden is relatively small compared to what it should be to feed a family of 5, but it's a trial and error thing. I'm learning. I feel like onions, if anybody on here knows how to grow onions well, like please, someone needs to come tell me what I'm doing wrong because last year it was better than the first year. The first year they were like barely bigger than the sets that I planted. Like they barely grew. And I feel like that's how the direction is going this year too. And last year they did get decent size, but they were like maybe golf ball size. So it wasn't huge, but that's a huge learning process. But potatoes, those have been so easy. Garlic, relatively easy. There are certain things I feel like that have been easier than others, but it's a big trial and error kind of a thing for me. It's taking a lot of patience and it's really though connecting me to where my food comes from and what it looks like and what it should look like. It's very easy to now be like at the grocery store and be like, wow, I know I have 4 Brussels sprout plants right now. And they're thriving because it has been very wet and cold. And I feel like for whatever reason, maybe they just loved it. And I'm really hoping I get Brussels sprouts, but it's cool. I never knew how Brussels sprouts grew. I mean, they're like little balls, but like they grow on this tall, like stalk, basically. And they pop out of the stalk, and it's so cool to see. And I would have never guessed that that's how a Brussels sprout grew. And it's super cool to teach my kids that too. They love digging for potatoes. I mean, it's like an adventure. We actually, when we were cleaning up the garden bed to like, winter for the winter, like to replant and like that kind of stuff, we found more potatoes that we didn't find when we were initially harvesting them because I initially harvested them like a couple of days before I went into labor. And so I was just like, just get these potatoes out. Let's just get it done because I'm not going to want to do it. But it's cool to not only myself learn that, but to teach that to my kids and to just reconnect to what food should look like and where it actually comes from. And honestly, like the hard work it takes to grow it because it's hard work. Also, cooking. So, gardening is the first thing, but like then just cooking and learning how to make stuff that you need and make it from home, learning how to the importance of cooking from home, and then just being able to value the time that you've spent and that somebody has spent preparing the food for you. It's very like nurturing, and it's a very big way that you can show somebody that you care for them. When friends are sick, like bringing them fresh bread or bringing them soup or broth. And it's super cool, I think, to see how easy it is to make certain things like broth. I had no idea how you made broth. And as a kid, I vividly remember always asking my mom if we could just get a big pot and just put a bunch of random vegetables and stuff in there. And for whatever reason, that was what I really wanted to do. And I don't really ever remember us doing it, but that's how it feels when you make broth. Like I get my crock pot out, I put usually it's rotisserie chicken is what we buy. Like, and I'll, make a meal with a rotisserie chicken and I'll just throw all the bones into the crock pot, put some vegetables, some carrots, some celery, an onion, a bunch of garlic, and then just cover it with water and then some apple cider vinegar and let it cook for like 24 hours. And it is just the most delicious broth I've ever tasted. And it's usually all stuff that I've already had or like scraps. Like I save the scraps from the carrots, like when I cut off the ends, or I save the scraps from onion or the scraps of the bones. Like I've also done it with like just like buying a whole chicken, right? And just like cooking the chicken. But man, it's delicious and it's so easy. And it's cool that I get to do that. And it's fun to see my kids learn to love to cook and bake. I know I mentioned that my son doesn't really love spending a whole lot of time in the kitchen, but most recently, he was motivated by money. But he wanted to sell cookies at during our garage sale weekend in our neighborhood. And so I was like, okay, we'll make the cookies. And so he got out the recipe. He's very good at reading. And so he was reading the recipe and making the cookies. And he did probably 75 to 80% of the work of making these cookies. And he sold cookies at our off of our driveway during our garage sale weekend. And he was so excited about it. Again, my daughter, my 3-year-old loves cooking. My 10-month-old has been baby worn. Like I have her in my baby wear to wear to make bread, to make all kinds of food, to make dinner. Even when she was in the womb, she was obviously making food with me. So we'll see. I hope she picks up on that too. But cooking and making your own food from home as much as possible is also super valuable and a big part of feeding your family differently. And then lastly, canning. Now, I am still learning how to can. I am no expert, but it is cool too. My kids, for whatever reason, they really like canned vegetables. And I guess I shouldn't say for whatever reason. I think it's because in between Peyton and when I was pregnant, like my second child, when I was pregnant with my third, it was just a lot easier to give her, my second child, the canned vegetables because they were already soft. And so carrots and peas and green beans and lima beans, even like she just loves all of those things. And my son does too. And so in order to get them to still eat those vegetables because they still like those vegetables, but they prefer them canned, I want to start learning to can them. So I canned green beans last year. They turned out great. I'm going to learn how to can carrots this year. That's what I'm claiming. It's cool to not only be able to introduce the things that they still love, but to make them cleaner. So I know what's in it. I know there's no BPA. I know there's no whatever else that might be concerned about cans, and then also just like a good steward of your money and resources. We went and picked strawberries at the local farm that does strawberry picking. And if we had not eaten all of our strawberries, it would have been a big waste of money. And so we made strawberry jam and preserves and I canned them. And I actually still have one jar of strawberry preserves from last year's canning session left over. And those have made great gifts for people. They've made delicious desserts for us and, spreads for our bread. But it's just being a good steward of your money. And I know there was like a sale on apples in the fall, this most recent fall. And so I bought a bunch of them because it was a good deal. And we made a ton of applesauce and we made a couple things of apple juice or like apple cider. And so it's just like a good stewardship of your money, I feel like too. And again, the control over ingredients. And then also just teaching your kids, again, real life skills, just like teaching them cooking, just like teaching them gardening, teaching them ways to preserve those foods for when they're not available, like summer foods for when they're not available so you can eat them in the winter still, is valuable and has been a big part of this call towards feeding my family differently. And I feel like it's deeper than just, oh, let's be grannies and like let's make our food from home. It's starting to reject this like convenience only culture. It's starting to teach kids real life skills. And it's starting to take control over our life and ingredients that we are introducing to ourselves and to our families. So, practically, though, obviously, I have 3 children and I have one who is only 10 months old and is fairly needy. So, I am not homemaking everything. And I don't think anybody should realistically have the time, at least at this stage of my life, to homemake everything. I think that's an unattainable standard. What we actually do homemake, I homemake bread. I very rarely, I'm trying to even remember the last time I myself have purchased bread for us because I even have a bread maker that my mother-in-law got me a couple years ago. So like if we need a loaf like really fast instead of the longer time for a sourdough loaf, then I'll just throw the ingredients into the bread maker and it'll make me bread. We homemake tortillas, we homemake pizza, we homemake cookies, and then we do dinners too. Not all of them, but I try to do as many dinners as possible. I would love to make yogurt, but I've not had the time to try and figure out how to make yogurt. I do have a couple friends who make yogurt and they have shared that yogurt with me, which is wonderful. We definitely still eat out though. I mean, especially this season of life when we're busy and we're running between like, I'm still trying to work out and my son has piano lessons. But then by the time we get home, everybody's starving. We do still eat out. That happens more often than I think I would like at this stage of my life. But we do still eat out every now and then if we've just had a rough day, like a rough day. And it's 4:30 p.m. and we normally eat at 5:30 at the latest. And I haven't even started making dinner. We may order pizza. I would love to be the kind of person, and this will eventually be me, that has homemade pizzas just like frozen and waiting in the freezer to pop into the oven, like a frozen pizza that you get at the store. It's all saved in my Amazon cart, like the little cardboard things and stuff, but I'm not that person yet. So we definitely still do that. I don't ever make buns, like hamburger buns, hot dog buns. I have made them before, but I just feel like they take a lot of effort for some reason. Like bagels, I really would love to make bagels, but right now it is not realistic for me. So I feel like you don't have to do it all in order for you to still be aiming for this. It's not about perfection. It's about taking small steps to make your life what you want it to be. I think in general, it's not about trying to do everything from scratch, to grow every food that you eat in your garden, to preserve and have your whole pantry be only full of things that you have canned. That's not the goal. I think in the like healthy space right now online, it is a lot of like all or nothing. You know what I mean? Like I I don't even remember who it was I was listening to. It was some podcast and they were trying to be like real and say, oh yeah, I'm not perfect. And their examples were just wackadoodle things that was like, okay, I do this on the regular. Like, they'd be like, every now and then, like, I do eat processed meat in the form of a hamburger that's not pasture raised. It's like, okay, I had a root beer from McDonald's just yesterday. So yeah, it's not like a, holier than thou type thing where if you decide you want to try and feed your family differently, it has to be an all in or not. It can literally just be, I want to feed my family differently, so I'm going to start making bread. Like, or I'm going to start buying organic fruits and vegetables. Or I'm going to start a garden that has one tomato plant. We're all on a different spectrum here. And so this call to the granny ways, this call to living and feeding our families differently, it starts wherever you are. And I think it goes at the pace that you want to go at. But it's about connecting or reconnecting to those skills that we should have and to something real, to real food and nutrition that feeds our families. So make sure if you are on this journey with me that you are following along with the email newsletter that I have, because I shared my sourdough recipe 2 emails ago, I believe. And I share all kinds of mom hacks and marriage questions of the week and all kinds of goodies in my free weekly email newsletter. So make sure you sign up for that and make sure you're following along at Good Grief Mama Podcast on Instagram, and check out our YouTube channel if you haven't already, and make sure that you are sharing us with a friend. And I'll be back next week.